Dash dash basa basa dash dash basa basa dash dash basa basa dash dash basa basa dash dash basa basa. Hey guys, this is Frozen Things Stews here, and welcome back to another movie review. And as promised, when I reviewed Christopher Nolan's movies leading up to Oppenheimer, I was going to review some more of his movies for his birthday. And yes, people, I gotta say, happy birthday to Christopher Nolan, one of the greatest filmmakers ever made, period, ever, period. Not ever made, just ever. So yeah, now I'm gonna be doing a review of some of his two two of his. I have selected the two movies from Nolan I'll be reviewing on his birthday, and today's review is going to be on The Dark Knight Rises. So The Dark Knight Rises is the third and final entry in the beloved The Dark Knight trilogy, and came out in the year 2012, and it stars Christian Bale, Tom Hardy, Anne Hathaway, Gary Oldman, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Marion Cotillard, Morgan Freeman, Michael Caine, Matthew Modine, Ben Mendelsohn, Bern Gorman, Aidan Gillen, Killian Murphy, etc. And so basically, The Dark Knight Rises tells a story taking place 8 years after the events of The Dark Knight, where, if you remember, at the end of The Dark Knight, Batman kills Harvey Dent, aka Two Face, and even though Harvey Dent has turned into a villain, the world still sees him as a hero. Now the world has turned against Batman for murdering Harvey Dent, and as Bruce Wayne, he's been in hiding for 8 years. 8 years, living with Alfred and Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman, like visiting him once in a while. One day, a terrorist named Bane comes into Gotham to comes into Gotham to be able to expose the truth behind who Harvey Dent really was, and also the Wayne man the Wayne company has and Wayne Enterprises has been taken over by a new person who is an evil businessman, and so when Batman hears about all the terror going on in Gotham City, Bruce Wayne goes out of hiding and returns as Batman and Batman. But yeah, the world still is against him, like going after him for murdering Harvey Dent. But when Bane challenges Batman and brutally defeats him, showing that Batman has lost his strength and just went out of hiding without being prepared. Bruce Wayne gets thrown into a pit where the world, where Gotham where Gotham is being terrorized without the help of Batman, and Bruce Wayne was rise to reset his life as curious Batman in order to defeat Bane. So yeah, I'm sure y'all know how I feel about the Dark Knight trilogy. The Dark Knight trilogy is just as good as everyone else says. I can see why some would say it's their favorite trilogy of all time. I still favor the Lord of the Rings trilogy over this as my favorite trilogy of all time. Well, I'm not sure, honestly. It's actually kind of hard to decide which is my favorite trilogy of all time. But one thing's for sure, the Narnia trilogy is actually my would actually be my favorite comic book trilogy of all time. Originally, I thought Guardians of the Galaxy was the best comic book trilogy, but on reflection, I would give that to the Dark Knight Rises, the Dark Knight, since well, actually, you know what? Both the Dark Knight and Guardians of the Galaxy are both tied as my favorite comic book trilogy. And right now, I still favorite Lord of the Rings as the best trilogy ever made. Period. Well, although one thing's for sure, I'm very sure the Spider Verse trilogy will become my new favorite comic book trilogy of all time. And Frozen has potential to be my new favorite trilogy, period, like in general, but we'll see about that. But right now, yeah, I'm not sure which I'm more geared towards, but right now, Lord of the Rings is the best trilogy. And yes, I will review Lord of the Rings, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, this December for Return of the King's fifth anniversary. But that's just for another time. So yeah, so as for my thoughts on the first two installments, Batman Begins is is a perfect origin story. For Bruce Wayne, I think it is both Batman Begins and the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies are tied as my favorite superhero origin stories of all time. I do think Joker is the best origin story movie, but that's just more of an origin of a villain. It's not a superhero movie. Superhero movie wise, I would say Spider-Man and Batman Begins are both tied. I can't really decide which is better. I would say Batman Begins is a better made film, but Spider-Man is just more dear to my heart. Maybe I'd give a slight edge to Spider-Man, but Batman Begins is still a masterpiece of an original story, origin story, and I know people are starting to say I'm starting to hear people say that Batman Begins is the best in the Dark Knight trilogy and one of Nolan's best movies in general, and they're all now preferring it over the Dark Knight. I mean, even that one of my subscribers, Jay Baker's, Batman Begins is his favorite Nolan movie and favorite superhero movie of all time. I can totally see where he's coming from. To me personally, The Dark Knight, now Batman Begins is the weakest of the trilogy easily, but it's still like a masterpiece and just shows how perfect of a trilogy this is. And of course, we got The Dark Knight, which is most which is which is a lot of people's favorite superhero movie of all time. Now, I don't think it's the best superhero movie or even the best Batman movie like what everyone else makes it out to be, but The Dark Knight is perfect. It is just such a perfect movie, and but there's just other superhero movies that I am more passionate about and more passionate about. Across the Spider-Verse, everyone knows that's my favorite superhero movie, but The Dark Knight is one of the most well-made superhero movies I've ever seen. Joker is one of the best villains, period. And I'm sure y'all have seen my review of The Dark Knight, but if you haven't seen my review of The Dark Knight yet, go check it out. So yeah, with all the praise, all the rave and praise of The Dark Knight, I'm sure we all know how much the hype is unreal. Now, at the time, I never really saw what the internet thinks about movies at the time, so I wouldn't really know how hyped this movie was, but I can already tell that people were so incredibly hyped for this movie. And I'm sure it will be their most anticipated movies of 2012. Now, if I had a most anticipated movies list at the time, I would honestly put The Avengers as my number one most anticipated movie in 2012, but one would be a close second. I would have been more hyped for The Avengers since The Avengers is pretty much a movie event at that time before bigger movies came out. Avengers was the movie event, and we've all been waiting for the Marvel movies to build up this one moment or hit. But just following the footsteps of the Dark Knight, yeah, the hype for this one is unreal because of how good Dark Knight was. People wanted to see more of Nolan doing the Dark Knight movies. And people did love it at the time. Sadly though, I did not see The Dark Knight Rises in theaters because I was too young and I never really saw a DC movie back then. Man of Steel was my introduction to DC and got me watching all the DC films like The Dark Knight and all that stuff. Yeah, so I never really had an interest of watching DC, and it came out in the same year I started watching superhero movies. So I saw like I saw The Avengers in theaters as the first superhero movie and the first non-kids movie I saw in theaters. And I saw The Amazing Spider-Man in theaters, which, yeah, Amazing Spider-Man, y'all know how much I hate that film. I mean, it came out it was in the exact same month as The Dark Knight Rises. Well, For surely, The Dark Knight Rises crushes Amazing Spider-Man big time. But yeah, at that time it was loved and people just loved it, and they would put it as their second favorite in the trilogy, second only behind The Dark Knight. And this is the highest grossing Christopher Nolan movie. Yeah, it's mainly because, this is hyped up. And I think no Christopher Nolan movie has ever been more hyped up than this one right here. So that's pretty much why this is the highest grossing Christopher Nolan movie. But unfortunately, as of today, this movie has become the most divisive Christopher Nolan movie, even more divisive than Tenet, where, well, some people still love the film and would praise the film as just a perfect conclusion to the franchise. Well, others say that others would call this movie overhyped and would say that this is actually a disappointing and flawed and underwhelming conclusion to this trilogy, and doesn't really live up to the Dark Knight, the previous to the Dark Knight in any way possible. Most people I know would call this the weakest in the trilogy, or maybe even the worst. And some would even go as far as calling this the worst Christopher Nolan movie in general. But I think you can already predict that I am on 1,000,000% on the positive side with The Dark Knight Rises, because every time I rewatch this movie, I just find new love for it. And at some point, it was in my top 10 favorite movies of all time list. The Dark Knight was higher. The Dark was higher. Even if I've always preferred The Dark Knight over this, I mean, I always knew that there was really something about The Dark Knight Rises that would make this stand out from The Dark Knight or any other Batman movies. But after rewatching this movie for Nolan's birthday, I gotta tell you right now that I am gonna say right now, The Dark Knight Rises is the best in the trilogy, in my opinion. But not only is this my favorite installment in the Dark Knight trilogy, but this is now officially my favorite Batman movie in general. For a year and a half, the Batman 2022, from when it came out until now, was my favorite Batman movie. Now this movie has dethroned it. And yes, people, I think this movie is better than the Batman and the Dark Knight combined. And this is also my favorite DC movie in general. Yep, that's how much I absolutely adore the Dark Knight. Remember when I said that Tenet is the most underrated Christopher Nolan movie? Well, I take that back. The Dark Knight Rises is the true most underrated Christopher Nolan movie. Although I'm still gonna keep, yeah, that's actually why I retitled my Tenet review to just why it's an underrated gem instead of the most underrated Christopher Nolan movie. But I mean, I don't really call this the most underrated Christopher Nolan movie because I think it's a bit of an understatement. Not an understatement. But yeah, now I would not go as far as calling this the best Nolan movie. I still would rank Inception and Interstellar slightly more than this, but I'm actually thinking of rearranging my Nolan ranking list. So let's see if this one can move up a bit. But right now, it's currently sitting at my third favorite Nolan movie, behind Inception, Interstellar. Well, Inception and Interstellar. Yep. Yep. And I think this is such a perfect choice to watch this movie for Nolan's birthday. I was originally going to watch. I was originally going to watch rewatch Interstellar for Nolan's birthday, but I decided I will still rewatch and review Interstellar, but the thing is that today, like later today, I am going on a pretty long trip out, and I thought that it would be a good idea for me to rewatch Interstellar on my phone watch something on my phone while during the long trip. It would have been originally Interstellar first and then The Dark Knight Rises. The problem is though that The Dark Knight Rises how do I say this? The thing is though, The Dark Knight Rises is not on Netflix and not anywhere. It's not really on anywhere to download on my phone. Even though I rewatch this one on Max. But yeah, Interstellar at least it's on Netflix, so I get to like download it and rewatch and watch it while offline. Well, this one I had to go online. Dark Knight Rises I had to go online to watch this movie. Um, to watch this movie, but I think I made a pretty good decision to rewatch this movie because I love it so much, and I do not understand the criticisms for this movie. Yeah, I think this movie is just a masterpiece. And yes, people, this is also my favorite movie, 2012. I should add as well. Like originally, Skyfall was my favorite movie, 2012, but now Skyfall has been dethroned by The Dark Knight Rises. Yeah, this Dark Knight Rises is such a perfect conclusion to the trilogy, and it really does stand out. Now, I will say that The Dark Knight is a better made movie. It is a better film when it comes to objectivity and stuff. But and also the Batman 2022 is a significantly better made film. Although what makes The Dark Knight Rises stand out from the rest is how what makes The Dark Knight Rises stand out from the other Batman movies is it's just how it really hits me so hard. It is really just yeah, it really left a bigger impact on me than other Batman movies, which is what makes this stand out from the rest. And yeah, there is just so much to rave about. I'm no clue where to start with. Well, one of the big highlights of this movie to me is Bruce Wayne's character. Now I heard some people complain about the Dark Knight missing out on missing out on Bruce Wayne's character development because the movie is so heavily reliant on on making Joker to stand out that it forgets that it's a Batman movie. But I understand where they're coming from. But to me, I think Bruce Wayne does get some solid character development in The Dark Knight. Even if it's probably the weakest characterization for Bruce Wayne in that film, at least he was still good in it. And I was still satisfied. I was still satisfied. But The Dark Knight Rises is Bruce Wayne at his best characterization. And yes, and originally I thought Robert Pattinson was the best Batman, but after rewatching this movie, I think Christian Bale is clearly the best Batman actor. Like Christian Bale in this movie gives the best performance in the best performance any Batman actor would give, whether it's Michael Keaton or Ben Affleck or Bale in the previous two movies. This one is the best acting I have seen from Bruce Wayne. Period. Yeah, and this is probably Bruce Wayne as best. Yes, I know. I get why. I know some people would complain that this has a lack of Batman and more. It's more on Bruce Wayne, but I think this movie does. But you completely understand why this movie is about Bruce Wayne. It's because Bruce Wayne. It's because this movie is about the fall of Batman and how he must rise again. So, this movie primarily focuses on Bruce Wayne himself and his fall. Like especially when this movie takes place 8 years after Batman's last adventure. We'd see Bruce Wayne being a broken man. Like yeah, Bruce Wayne starts out as such a broken man who is quarantined at home, and he is old looking, and he like becomes a washed up loser who there has nothing else in his life. The only thing people around him are is pretty much Alfred, and also we got Selena Kyle and Morgan Freeman's character Lucius Fox to visit Bruce Wayne. Well, mostly Selena Kyle. And yeah, and then and then of course we got Bruce Wayne coming out of retirement when in this epic action, and I will save the action scenes for later. But then let's focus on Bruce Wayne's character development. But But yeah, when Batman tries to challenge Bane, like you probably noticed that Batman just comes out of retirement still feeling old and weak. He didn't even train at all. Like he barely even trained. So when he faced Bane, you see Batman's weakness. Yeah, that's one thing this movie acknowledges, Batman's weakness. And it just shows here, especially with Bane being one of the most powerful, no, not powerful, that's an overstatement. One of the strongest Batman villains, where he literally uh, took down Batman, and threw Batman in the pit, basically where he and Talia al Ghul escape from. Yeah, and then we see like pretty much Bruce Wayne like falling into the pit. And yes, this movie is about pain. Yeah, I'm sure you're all familiar with the three themes of each one. And yeah, that's actually one thing I love about. That's one thing I love about this movie, about this trilogy, is that Nolan would tackle on different ideas and subject matters. Each one is a different genre. Batman Begins is a superhero origin story. But The Dark Knight is a crime drama, riveting crime drama. This one is a straight drama and a further character study of Bruce Wayne. And at times it would feel like a horror movie. Well, to be fair, the other two can also have horror vibes, especially with Batman Begins being the darkest one of the three. Darkest one of the three. And yeah, but when it comes to the subject matter, the first movie is well, I actually forgot I actually don't remember what the first one is. Wait, I'm just trying to um um I'm just trying to remember. But yeah, but one thing's for sure, Batman The Dark Knight is about chaos, and this one is, oh wait, no, I remember now. Batman Begins is about fear. Uh, the Dark Knight is chaos, and this one here, it's all about pain. It's about Bruce actually having weakness, like having to suffer, and you really feel bad for him. You really root for Bruce Wayne to rise again, to rise from the pit, to restart his life as Batman. Like, this is basically almost like a retelling of Bruce Wayne's origin story. It's like, the original Bruce Wayne has died, and now it's time for a new Bruce Wayne to just rise up and to just rise up from the pit, and pretty much take on the Batman. Like, have Batman just restart his life. And yes, the pit scene is just very inspirational. Just, yeah, sure. Bruce Wayne does get stuck in the pit for a long time, and throughout he gets stuck in the pit throughout the second night. And while Bruce Wayne is in the pit, we see how Gotham is terrorized. How Gotham feels like when there's terrorists around and no Batman to stop them. And then with the build up to the third act, we get what might possibly be one of my absolute favorite scenes of all time. And yes, I'm gonna talk about it right now. The best scene in the film, no competition. Bruce Wayne out rising onto the pit. Like, it is one of the most inspirational movie moments of all time, because we see Bruce Wayne has been like broken for like most of the movie, and so when it comes to the second act, the second act slowly building towards the third act, Bruce Wayne is able to rise up from the pit, and Bruce Wayne is able to rise up from the pit, like climb the walls of the pit, and then we hear like the crowd chanting face face basa basa face face. Well, I'm pretty sure the right word they said is Deshi Basa, which is Arabian for rise up, or rise up, and yes, and by the way, the chant just makes the movie more epic. I will talk about Hans Zimmer's score later, but yeah, like it really was like when Bruce Wayne is trying to has regained his confidence and is trying to rise up. Root for you really root for him so much that you actually want to join the crowd, you really want to join the crowd and do that. Days you pass just chant with them, and when the Batman fight Bruce Wayne finally gets out of prison, you see it would just make you want to cheer with them because that's how impactful that moment was right there. Just a striking, a powerful moment for Bruce Wayne, and yes, that's and I rewatched that scene over and over again, and never it most certainly never gets old. And yes, and of course, well, the ending scene. I'll talk about the ending scene, the beautiful ending where Batman sacrifices himself to pretty much save Gotham from a bomb. Yeah, since the bomb is at the since the bomb is placed at the city. Bruce Wayne yeah, Batman and Bruce Wayne sacrifices himself to save everyone and save the city. And that is one of the most powerful right there. Now, I will admit that I didn't really cry um, at Batman's death. Shed a tear, yeah, I kind of did, but I didn't really cry. Like it wasn't really like, Bond's death or Iron Man's death where it would just make you sob and probably just make you feel depressed throughout. I think it is just very satisfying though. And I'll discuss more about the ending later on, but yeah. Another thing I want to talk about to me is Michael Caine's Alfred. Yeah, I cannot believe what they did to Alfred here, and that's a good way, by the way. Like, don't take that as a bad thing. I cannot believe what they did to Alfred in this one. As you all know, Alfred is Bruce Wayne's butler, but most of the time, Alfred is mostly just there to be Bruce Wayne's butler. But they don't. But if you notice, they don't really give him a strong character development. Like you know, you kind of don't feel you don't really feel anything from Alfred other than he's Batman's son. Well, other than well, he's Batman's actor. He's I mean Bruce Wayne's butler, but um, with butler. But in this movie in particular, we actually like dive deep into Alfred, like being like Alfred in this movie is a father figure to Bruce Wayne, and he do anything he can to lose Bruce Wayne because because since Bruce Wayne is like is starting to get old. He's starting to age, and he kind of thinks about dying. But Alfred just tells Alfred tells Bruce Wayne that he's not going to lose him, and he says this, I've sewn you up, I've set your bones, but I won't bury you. I've buried enough members of the Wayne family. Yeah, and we see and not only is this does this movie showcase Bruce Wayne's pain, but it showcases Alfred's pain as well. Alfred just really afraid to lose Wayne. Yeah, we see Alfred's fear. We see Alfred's fear. Yeah, fear of him losing. Like here just fear of losing Bruce Wayne, and yes and then in the end of the movie, like I'll talk more about the ending later. I'll just talk about this one scene. Now, specifically in Bruce Wayne's funeral, Alfred just really mourned for him, like just feeling like really, like Alfred has become broken after seeing Bruce Wayne's death and after hearing the news that Bruce Wayne has died, and he said that he failed him, like he promised that he was not gonna let Bruce Wayne die, but he has failed him, and you really feel the pain that he did, because all Alfred wanted was just to not let go of Bruce Wayne, to be able to continue serving serving Bruce serving Bruce Wayne, and yes Christian Bale may have such a powerhouse of a performance, but Michael Caine is probably gives the best performance in this movie, and one of the greatest performances in a Nolan movie period. I still think Heath Ledger's Joker gives the best performance in the trilogy, but oh, Michael Caine in this movie would be a close second. I mean, wow, like Michael Caine gives an Oscar-worthy performance. How did he not get an? How in the how on earth did Michael Caine not get an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor? If it were down to me in the Frozen Awards 2013, I 1,000,000% would have given Michael Caine the award for Best Supporting Actor. Yes, even over Javier Bardem as Silva. Just yes, sure. Michael Caine has always been in Christopher Nolan's movies. Yeah, some may think that Cillian Murphy has some. Some may think that Cillian Murphy has the most number of appearances in a Nolan movie, but actually it's Michael Caine. Yeah, although most of the time Michael Caine would be just like cameos here, like in Inception and Tenet, where he just have small minor roles. But in this one, but this is probably Michael Caine's biggest appearance in a Nolan film and his best performance yet. And this is why Alfred will always be Michael Caine's best role. Like, period. Like, no competition right there. But yeah, there's like so many other things to rave about this movie besides those two, and it's more like 30 minutes, and that's pretty much how just attached I am. Yeah, this probably has the most stat cast in the trilogy, considering that this movie is the follow-up to Inception and only was 2 years prior to, and only released 2 years after Inception. We actually got to see a lot of Inception actors in this one, like Cillian Murphy is in this one. Like he had a cameo. Cillian Murphy actually had a cameo scene as Scarecrow, and yeah, but yeah, a great cameo. I didn't see that coming. Like, I'm sure we wouldn't have. And also we got Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Tom Hardy, and Marion Cotillard, the three actors who played major characters in Inception, but Inception and then followed up here. Yeah, Nolan is kind of like James Gunn, where he'd like to work with the same actors that he really feels close with. That he feels like he wants to do more with these actors. Yeah, that more with these actors, and I gotta say, I think they're all great. Blake is certainly one of my favorite characters in this movie, and probably like from time to time, he would probably be my favorite. Just oh wait no, Gordon Levitt performance. Although The Walk, 2015's The Walk was my introduction to this but yeah. Sorry, I jumped. Sorry, something fell. But, anyways, back to what I was saying. Joseph, but yeah, I would say Inception is Joseph Gordon-Levitt's best role, but I really enjoyed seeing him in this movie. Just being this great, just underdog cop who pretty much just wants to prove that he's a great cop, and later on he actually becomes Robin. Although we never really see him as Robin, I don't think we ever will. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, yeah, since considering that Bruce Wayne has died, Joseph Gordon-Levitt pretty much takes on is pretty much set up to be the replacement of Batman. Although I think we don't really need a Dark Knight 4, I think a fourth installment. I think this movie just ended perfectly. And of course, let's talk about the two main villains, Bane and Talia al Ghul. Talia al Ghul. Yeah, Bane is probably my second favorite. Bane is probably my second favorite villain in the Dark Knight trilogy. Second only behind, well, of course, Joker. Yeah, Bane is such a menace. Like yeah, sure, he's no Joker, but he's almost just as good as Joker. He is such a major threat to Batman, and he actually took down Batman and took down Bruce Wayne's life, and he really made Bruce Wayne just face the pain that Bane and young Talia is. Talia is, and yeah, and they're pretty much, and the villains in this movie are pretty much the League of Shadows, the the League of Shadows, which Batman Begins was the villain, like Ra's al Ghul was the leader of the League of Shadows. But in this one, we got both villains completing. We got both villains who are pretty much just trying to finish the work of Ra's al Ghul. And speaking of which, yeah, that's actually one thing that makes The Dark Knight Rises a perfect sequel, is that it actually feels inclusive for the first two. It's a sequel to Batman Begins and a sequel to The Dark Knight Rises. Usually in third films, it would just mostly serve as a sequel to the second film, but it wouldn't feel but the first one doesn't really feel inclusive in this. But the Dark Knight Rises makes sure to The Dark Knight Rises is able to make sure to include both Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises. No, I mean The Dark Knight, the second film. With Batman Begins, this movie is basically the villains are trying to finish what the League of Shadows in the first film, like what Ra's al Ghul has started, and and as a sequel to The Dark Knight, it's basically Batman in hiding after it's basically the aftermath of Harvey Dent's death, where the world turns against Batman, but Batman still. It took Bruce Wayne 8 years to come out of the shadows and just return as Batman. So I like that this movie feels inclusive of both movies, and it actually does pay off so well as a sequel to both movies, and as a standalone conclusion to this epic trilogy. So anyways, yeah. Back to Bane, yeah, he really does feel like a threat, and because of him, the stakes in this movie are raised even higher than they were. I'll talk about the action scenes later on, but let me just finish this one first up. So yeah, the stakes were raised even higher than they ever were before. And Talia al Ghul is probably the most underrated villain in the franchise. The most underrated villain. Yeah, I mean I love the twist. I don't know if it was in the comics that Miranda Tate is actually Talia al Ghul, but whether you read the comics or not, yeah, you'd actually I mean the whole twist at the end that Miranda Tate, or with her real name being Talia al Ghul, is literally the one behind this the whole time. Yeah, Bane may be the main antagonist throughout, but the main villain. But turns out that it was revealed, like the big plot twist is that Talia al Ghul is actually, the true mastermind behind like this movie. Like Talia al Ghul is actually the true main antagonist of this movie, because Bane is actually just Talia's guardian, and like Bane is actually just working for Talia, and Talia is the one who's pretty much behind everything, as she is the daughter of Liam Neeson's Ra's al Ghul, and she would pretty much finish what Ra's al Ghul started. I know people say that the twist is probably the worst thing about the film, and Talia al Ghul is considered to be the worst character in this trilogy. But actually, I think she's underrated. She's underrated. Yeah, I personally defend her. Now, yes, she's no Joker or Bane. Yes, Bane is the better of the two villains in this movie, but I mean, like, I still think the twist that Talia is the main villain of this movie and Bane is just working for her is actually just a really good is a really good plot twist. And actually, I will say I actually prefer. I actually think this movie is. I actually prefer Talia over Maul in the last film. Yeah, hot take here. Yes, like literally Marion Cotillard that plays the villain twice in a Nolan movie. First Maul in Inception, and now Talia in The Dark Knight Rises. Yeah, I do. Yes, I actually prefer Talia over Maul. I think Marion Cotillard gives a better performance. And it's even more surprising to see because Talia, well, as Miranda, like Miranda's actually Bruce Wayne's lover in this one. Yeah, I know Rachel is absent in this movie, but pretty much Miranda is pretty much Bruce Wayne's lover until like she just actually betrays him. And yeah, really, and when Talia was revealed to be the true mastermind behind the terror of this movie, you really see in Batman's acting, like Batman once again feeling broken, like feeling just heartbroken that his lover is actually the true mastermind, and you really see his face, you really feel his reaction towards that, yeah. And so yeah, I'll probably rank the Dark Knight trilogy villains in the comments below. So in my comment below, so look out for that. Look out for that. Yeah. And what else is there to say? Oh yeah. Also think I also do like Jim Gordon. This one just still feeling down after Harvey Dent's death. Yeah, you really feel his pain. And yeah, Lucius Fox is probably the weakest character. Sometimes I even forget he was in this film, but I forget that he was even in this film. But no, he's still good in this. And yeah, as for other things, yeah. And what else did I say? Oh yeah, this is this is without question the biggest one in the Dark Knight trilogy. Yeah, maybe I might be biased calling this the best one because it's the biggest one, but I already like give a full gave a full detailed explanation as to why this is my favorite. But there's still a bit more to go. Yeah, maybe I will admit that this doesn't really have the complexity of a Nolan movie. This is one of the least felt. This one of those movies that does feel like a Nolan movie the least. Maybe it's probably why it's probably what made people put off on this movie, that it felt more like an average superhero blockbuster than a Nolan movie. But I think Nolan is able to craft this movie without trying way too hard to be complex. This is probably Nolan's most character-driven movie, and Nolan is more focused on plot than characters. And if you know me, you know that characters is my favorite aspect of film. So I'm really happy to see characters feeling more inclusive in this movie. More like female characters feeling more inclusive. No, I mean character development, feeling more inclusive. Like this has stronger character development than most of Nolan's movies. Well, maybe with the exception of Interstellar. Well, because that movie is also a character driven. Like it has a complex plot and deep character development at the same time. At the same time, and yes, the stakes are raised even higher. The action scenes in this movie easily has the best action in the Nolan films. Say what you want about this being the worst in the trilogy, but I think we should all agree that this has the best action scenes in the trilogy, because my god, the action scenes in this movie are phenomenal. Like especially with the Batman versus Bruce Wayne fight scenes. Oh my goodness, it is just so epic and so brutal. And then we also get the stadium fight, which is which is the stadium, the scene with the stadium, the scene with Bane blowing up the stadium. That's actually my second favorite scene in the movie. Yeah, Bruce Wayne rising up is the best scene. I already said that like a couple of times earlier in the review, but Bruce, but yeah, the terror attack is the best moment in the film. Like the stadium bomb, yeah, that's actually one of the most rewatchable scenes in the film. And of course, the final battle. Oh my goodness, it is just so big. I will admit that the Dark Knight does. If there's any weaklings in the Dark Knight, it's the final battle. Yeah, I think it probably has the weakest final battle in the entire trilogy. I'd even prefer the train final battle in Batman Begins over the building final battle, the abandoned building final battle in the Dark Knight. But this one just goes beyond big. Yeah, it is edge of your seat action throughout from start to finish, and was just really on the edge of my seat watching that insanely epic final battle, and which just makes you want to cheer, and yeah. But one thing that raises the bar even higher is Hans Zimmer's score. You know, Of course, but I talk about the chant, this, dasa, asa. It really raises the bar even higher. It raises the bar even higher than it already was with that, just insanely epic chant. And it just makes you want to get up and cheer. And yeah, that's how epic it was. And if that wasn't enough yet, pretty much the score, I mean, it does have the typical score in the trilogy with the dun 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 dun. But with the inclusion of the chant, like with the mix of that and the chant, it makes it more epic. And that's actually why I love Hans Zimmer, because his score is pretty much what makes this the movie feel bigger and more epic. When you especially have an epic score. But I do like that there's like an action scene in this that doesn't even have a score at all. I kind of like really I dig that idea. So yeah, anything else I want to add? Oh yeah. And yeah, oh yeah, I forgot to mention my personal favorite character in the movie. I forgot to mention Anne Hathaway's Catwoman. Yeah, I know some people just some people, not a lot of people are a fan of Anne Hathaway's Catwoman. But to me personally, I think Anne Hathaway just does steal the show. Well, yeah, well, maybe I might be biased because she's actually my Dark Knight trilogy crush. And she's one of my Nolan crushes alongside Jean Tatlock, alongside Jean and Ariane. But I mean, I don't know, maybe Alfred is kind of my favorite character in this, but you know what? Yeah, thinking about it, yeah, I don't think she's the best character. I think Alfred. My favorite character in this movie is actually Alfred, and Bruce is a close second. But yeah, Anne Hathaway is one of my favorite female characters in a Christopher Nolan movie, and Anne Hathaway is my favorite Catwoman. Yes, even over Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman and Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman. I think Anne Hathaway is just my personal definitive Catwoman. And Anne Hathaway, I just see her as Selena Kyle the most out of the others. Um, and yeah, and she is by far Anne Hathaway's best performance. Anne Hathaway is not one of my favorite actresses. In fact, far from it. But I think Catwoman is her. Deserves to be her signature role, in my opinion. And yes, let's talk about the ending. I talk about Alfred being broken, feeling broken after Bruce Wayne's death, but and uh, and um, and Blake taking on the mantle of the Cape Crusader after taking on the superhero role after Bruce Wayne's death. Because the city still needs someone, but yeah, one specific part of the ending I want to talk about is pretty much something that they did in the ending of Inception, pretty much where the audience gets to interpret like what happens in the scene. It's the scene where Alfred sits in the cafe and it's a scene where Alfred sits in the cafe and like feeling lonely, and then across, like in a table across Alfred's table, he sees Bruce Wayne with Selina Kyle. Although, unlike Inception, I think it's a little more obvious that I think it's easy to get an answer. Is that um, Bruce Wayne in an ending is basically just Alfred's imagination. Like Alfred was just imagining Bruce Wayne's. Yeah, Alfred was just imagining Bruce Wayne being alive. Although I can see why some would say that some would think that Bruce Wayne is actually still alive. But I think it's kind of true that Bruce Wayne is just Bruce Wayne at the cafe is just Alfred's imagination. Yeah, I mean, but just like in Inception, where the totem is still spinning, and some people would say, "Oh no, is Cobb still dreaming or not?" But Michael Caine himself just confirmed that that Cobb is still alive, and he actually does have a good point. I mean, Cobb is not dreaming, and him getting home to see his kids is actually real because Michael Caine's character had to be involved. Has to be there if Cobb is awake, and Michael Caine is not there, then Cobb is still dreaming. But yeah, so it makes sense. But yeah, but I just love how Nolan is a genius by making the audience just try to figure out for themselves out what actually happened. Yeah. So overall, The Dark Knight Rises is a masterpiece. It like in every single way. This is not yeah. This is my favorite DC movie in general, and one of my favorite Nolan movies, up there with Inception and Interstellar. So yeah, not much else to say. I think I said everything that needed to be said. So that said, I'm gonna give The Dark Knight Rises easily a 10 out of 10. It's not quite my top 10 favorite movies of all time, but it is in my top 20 for sure. So also for my review of The Dark Knight Rises, what is your opinion on this movie? Do you agree with me that this is the best? This is the best in the Dark Knight trilogy. Do you think that this is the most underrated? The most underrated in the Dark Knight, the most underrated Nolan film. I know even Christopher. I know this movie is underrated. Even Christopher Nolan himself says that this is the most underrated film that he's made, and it just shows how underrated it is. Now, even if you don't agree that this is better than The Dark Knight, would you agree that this is the most underrated Nolan film, or are you on the negative side and you think that this is an underwhelming conclusion and one of Nolan's weakest works? Comment down below, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and stay tuned for my review of Interstellar. So yeah, bye guys.